So people might be starting to log in. I think we'll.
Yeah, they are. Hello, everybody.
Hello, thank you for being here.
So we are just going to wait like 2 minutes, but it looks like everybody, it's so amazing. I noticed with Zoom, everybody's always on time. You know, there's nobody's late ever. Whereas in previous, you know, live meetings, usually people are late. So anyway, so we'll just give it, it's 5:30 on the dot. I mean, not 5:30, it's 2:30 for you guys.
In San Francisco and Los Angeles.
Yes. I'm in New York, it's 5:30 for me. End of the day, I'm having my cup of tea with my beautiful mug. Actually, that Lisa bought me. Yeah, oh wow. We have so many people already. People are so on time. So let me first say, people are already putting on chat, which is great. If anybody, we're going to eventually have a Q&A at the end of the presentation. So anybody who has questions, please put it in the Q&A, not in the chat. And we'll get to read both, but this way we'll make it easier because we have our lovely helper, Alexandra, who's going to read the questions at the end of our presentation. So I'm just going to dive right in. I'm going to start, Lisa, okay? Great. Lisa's in her beautiful studio in Northern California. I'm in my beautiful studio here in Chelsea, New York City. And thank you for joining us. This is a very special presentation. We have a film to show you that I think you'll enjoy. And I just want to give a little background on how I met dear Lisa, who is a renowned interior designer that I'm sure a lot of you know and know of her work. I was in California in the design center many years ago, and I met her there. I had already known her when I was introduced. I said, oh my God, I know you, Lisa Staprans. I've heard about you. I've seen your work. And we immediately connected and we started to chat. And this, with permission she had given me, she had just undergone cancer, breast cancer. And she was very candid with me about it. And we started talking about how silver linings, and she'll get more into it, but the idea that design, color, pattern, all of these things can really help in our healing and in our wellness. And I know that wellness is sort of this catchphrase that everybody's using now, wellness and well-being, but it actually is something we all need. And design elevates that. And so kudos to all of the amazing interior designers out there. But so as Lisa and I developed our relationship over the years, we would talk more and more about it. And Lisa has this whole study and knowledge on neuroscience, which is a term I never even had heard of, and how that she uses that in her design. So with that, I'd like to pass on to Lisa to just give a little bit intro, and then we're going to go into a beautiful video and then have Q&A at the end. So take it away, Lisa.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. So just a quick intro. Yes, it was about 18 years ago I met Lori live at a presentation she gave. And her work's just, as many on this presentation know, it's so layered, and she works with so many artisans, and there's so much depth and care and appreciation for how things are made. And what I consider to be sacred is the ripple effect on how production's done, the artisans we work with globally, the impact what we do has, and just the energy it creates. And so I did meet Lori coming out of a very difficult health crisis. I'm well now, but it was very, very life-changing. I was questioning, what am I doing with my life? What's the point? I mean, I love design, I love what I do, but I knew there was a bigger impact to our work. And so I met Lori, we connected, I work with a lot of her beautiful things, and also just how she approaches her work in the world really resonated for me. And so my work with neuroscience, soul and design, and beauty, that actually beauty, color is a game changer, as a lot of people here know. It affects your neurochemistry and it affects your brain chemistry. And I'm doing a lot of research on this because I'm going to finally hopefully get my book out in the next year. And that we can actually heal. We can help, in our profession, we can help people heal, be less anxious, have more clarity of thought, just like ancient cultures have known and healing environments know. So through color and design, we have incredible tools to help human beings be happier, healthier people. And it will trigger neurochemistry and biochemistry in our bodies for calmness, for pleasure, for the right kind of neurotransmitters to be released. So this is where Lori and I layer in. Our worlds converge through color and through design, and that we can create healthier, more beautiful environments through not only just beauty, but the deeper impact it has on our well-being. So we're going to show you the film that Lori and I created.
We decided, I'm just interrupting for a second to say, like, you know, so many people are zoomed out, and just instead of just staring at our heads for an hour, talking back and forth, we bring you this video that I think will be much more compelling and romantic. And I do want to just give a call out to my nephew who composed the music behind as we take you through each of the color worlds and so forth. So,
and also when Lori and I can be live one day with everybody, the stage will be filled with more than just color and texture. There'll be music, there'll be dance, there'll be all the elements that trigger our senses.
Hugs.
It'll be a real connection, but we're trying to give you a bit of that through the movie and the film that we worked very passionately on. And of course, the music was created for the film. So
I'm going to disappear. We're going to disappear, right? So there's going to be a switch over. We're going to disappear. You won't hear us or see us. And then we'll come back to you in about 25 minutes, I think it is.
22 minutes, and Alexandra will moderate the Q&A. And please put your questions in the Q&A, not the chat. And we're so excited you're here, and please hang with us. We really appreciate it if you could enjoy this with us.
2 minutes. Okay.
This chair, chairs in general, they affect your soul. Now let that settle in a little bit. It may sound like, how can a chair affect my soul? But it actually brings out your soul. A chair can have a hard shape, a soft shape, a certain color. It can be bright, it could be sexy, it could be leather, it could be some gorgeous woven upholstery. It could be so many different colors, and you're drawn to it, and you can't often explain why. And for our clients, we might see a chair and go, that's just perfect for them. That tells a story. So a chair, something as simple as a chair, can affect your soul. Now, what's a soul? A soul is the truest form of ourselves. When we strip away all the outside influences, all the preconceived notions of what a soul is, thinking it might be religious or spiritual, a soul is our truest form of ourselves. It unabashedly aims to identify our core. And if we can create an environment that brings us closer to our core and helps us understand who we are in our deepest, kind of most pure, truthful state, I believe that makes us a happier, healthier person. And by understanding our soul and our clients' souls and what an experience can make somebody feel, it's going to make us more connected to that environment, and it's going to make us healthier and happier. Outside influences and how we experience an outside influence absolutely will trigger a physiological response and a neurological response. It will trigger our body's chemistry. Sometimes you don't even know, it hasn't registered with your brain yet, but you'll get a flutter in your heart. You'll have an elevated heart rate. You might get a little sweaty. You might just get excited. Then it will hit your brain, and all of a sudden your brain will go, oh, wait a minute, I feel good, or I feel scared, or I feel like I want to run and hide, or I feel like I want to jump up and down. The outside environment and the environment we let come inside, the environments we create inside, meaning I call it more of a sanctuary, but that can reinforce the feel-good neurotransmitters. And the neurotransmitters are our body's chemical messengers, and they basically impact our soul. They support our soul, they nurture our soul, and they help us experience a space, and they also help us make us feel differently in those spaces. Feel-good neurotransmitters are what are released when we're in spaces that bring out the best in us, that tap into the deepest part of ourselves, which is our soul. For example, dopamine, it's known as the feel-good neurotransmitter, and it's responsible for the feeling of pleasure and satisfaction. Serotonin regulates mood, social behavior, sleep, memory, and desire. Oxytocin, that's the love hormone, or it's been called that, and it plays a major role in bonding and well-being. Endorphins, the stress fighters, they reduce stress, increase pleasure, and result in a boost to the immune system, which I think is incredible that an environment and the influences we let into our environment can make us healthier, take away the stress. Now, cortisol, It's our body's main stress hormone, and it controls our mood, motivation, and fear. It's at our basic cellular level. It's our fight or flight mechanism and our reactions in the world. But if we can support the cortisol and the adrenaline in our lives in a healthy way with enough healthy triggers for the healthy neurotransmitters and enough healthy elements that bring out the best in us, that cortisol will drive us to action and give us energy. We'll be more focused. It's like anything's possible. And as an industry, we can actually have an effect on all of these things. And that's where it layers into the ripple effect of all the decisions we make and how it layers into Lori's color worlds, into the worlds that we create and the colors that we choose.
As a textile designer, I always thought when I wrote a book, it would be about textiles. And although the book I wrote has textiles in it, it's really about color. I created these color worlds. They are special colors, they're unique to me, but I think that all of you will respond to most of them or some of them, and maybe create some of your own in your head once you've learned about mine. And I immerse you into those worlds, what those colors mean, how they make you feel, how you can use them to create the moods and energies that you might want or need in a space. Waterside is a world of all the different blues, and it's an unusual world because some of my other worlds, which you'll learn about, have a mixture of colors, but all the different blues, the light, the dark, the dramatic, the powerful, they all can make us feel very grounded. They're very steady. They're like your best friend. I always joke around that if a person were waterside, they would be the one who would help you early to set up for a party and stay late to help you clean up. They're reliable, they're dependable, they're intelligent. These are colors we want to round us to feel comfortable.
Depending upon how you use the blue, depending upon the shade of blue, it changes the whole experience of the color. It's really, blue is one of these colors, sky, water. I love how you can have this energy of like blue circles and floating excitement. And then you can, I've also done a project where I had like 4 or 5 shades of blue in one kitchen. Now that's a challenge as a designer. How do you make it feel like it belongs and they work together? But when you do it, when you think about all the impacts they all have on each other, you can create a whole environment that's just very, very calming, energizing, and creates a real sense of where you want to be in a space.
Silverlight are all the cool metals, not warm metals, cool metals. They're mirrors and reflective things and sleek things. This is the color world of innovation. This is the color world where people think of things that others have never thought of before. It's about vision. It's about experimentation. And I love this world, and it's really interesting because it's not an easy color world for me to use in my interiors. And yes, I feel like I'm an innovative person. So how an interior designer would use Silverlight is really interesting.
There are the colors that just have a sense of sparkle and quiet and layered kind of, I want to say meditation, but it's energizing at the same time. So you're not going to fall asleep. You're very aware, but it also has this subtle layering. And I've done work where I maybe paint the walls multiple layers of tone and color. And there's examples where I have clouds on the wall, but you can't quite tell. A silhouette of a hummingbird. They're usually moving so fast. But in the moment, I capture it with sparkling light and the movement of the bird stops. But you know it's going to move. So your mind's like, that bird's moving. And it triggers something deep inside of you. In this case, it was a young teenager. And we wanted to give him a bathroom that would be kind of a cool effect and kind of sexy, but also kind of like, you know, it was grown up, but it wasn't too grown up, and it was cool that, you know, mom and the designer thought this would be a good idea, and the young man was really excited about it. And then there are environments where you mix metals, typically for this kind of, I call it innovative, and you know, you layer in with the silver metals, stainless steel, matte nickel, kind of this kind of more saturated, not saturated, layered gray blue, but it's not really blue. It's more of a gray that complements the stainless steel and the metal. A little bit of warmth of the walnut and the wood tones, and then the white marble. There's just this layering of this quiet state that makes you feel, brings your, these projects were people, especially this one with the stainless steel and the nickel. These were innovator thought leaders. They traveled the world. They wanted to come home and they wanted to feel that same sense of energy and excitement and work they do in the world. And there are rooms where you have the layers where you have, it can be challenging because they want to have this calming yet, savvy environment, and multiple seating options where it still feels intimate. So I have, I think, 6 swivel lounge chairs in this room. And I do have some warm tones to complement the sparkly kind of silvery gray tones, but it's all this layering effect and thinking about what the impact of one is on the other.
Garden Party is actually a delightful color world. It's all about joy and play. It's those pastel colors, but for me, they're not too sweet. And they are all about letting go. I always talk about the way Fred Astaire dances, and that the way he dances is very Garden Party. It's about not worrying about things. It's about play. It's about magic. It's about pure joy, celebrating spring. Those fresh spring greens, for example, those flowers before the colors get too saturated. This is Garden Party, my Garden Party.
Then there are the colors you just want to smile, you want to kind of jump, you want to sing, you just feel like it's going to be okay. It's actually going to be okay. And that's a really good feeling to create right now. Maybe not as much seriousness. It depends, once again, on the client, on kind of the call to action. Really, as designers, and as creators and as fabricators, we're creating with all these multiple layers and knowing that fabric, that texture, that material, that stone, that carpet, that light, that wood, the view lines, the space, the place in the space, where it sits on its street, are all going to layer in to create this feeling of, I am just so excited, I'm going to run up the steps to come home. Like this just sense of joy. And there are colors that bring this amazing sense of joy. It's almost like a vibrancy that lifts you, and you feel like it's going to be okay. So that's a very deep emotional trigger, that it's going to be okay. You're going to release healthy neurotransmitters. You're going to have a healthier immune system. That colors can do this in this happy combination of, it's like a symphony of colors that bring joy to you. And they need to be a certain saturation and a certain layer of coloring, but not too heavy, but light enough. And also just bring in those not really rainbow colors, and this family loved it. They love color. And I brought it together by having references of the color throughout the space. And there's a very lively family, and they do sing, and they do dance, and they do play lots of instruments. And I feel like the colors really celebrated that. It was really a joyful project.
Night Shadows is a very, very serious world. It is dark, it is misty, foggy, charcoal, and truffle and merlot. It's the kind of space where you want to speak with someone about a secret and share it over a glass of red wine, or even maybe a glass of whiskey, who knows. And it's about seduction, but it's also mystery. And I love this color world because it's a color world I want to be in when I'm trying to figure out what my next steps are. There's this saying about being in the dark and then you see the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. That's what Night Shadows is about. So it's a very, very important color world.
There are the colors in the work I've done that are cocooning and sultry and maybe a little sexy and kind of secretive. In this case, this client had this painting they loved. It had all this kind of dark, sultry depth. And then I kind of centered the room around it and had these deep, rich colors in the wood, and then the subtlety of the warmth of the grays, and then the textile and the hand looming in the pillows, a little bit of silk in the rug. And you want to cozy up, maybe have a cashmere throw or just a throw wrap around you, and you want to have your cup of tea. They drank a lot of tea. They were tea connoisseurs. And just imagining that warm cup of tea and that kind of sense of being anchored and also transcendent, but kind of in a rich, secretive, comfortable way. And there's other ways that we can do that where it's really a layering of metals and light and dark and and how you play with that.
This color world is whisper. And I remember there was an ad a long time ago, if you want to capture someone's attention, whisper. Probably half of you don't even know it because you're too young to remember that ad, but there's something very powerful about things that are quiet. And whisper is all about the whites and the off-whites and the whites with a little bit of pink and a little bit of blue and a little bit of green. But they're so nuanced that you can't name them. They're impossible to name. Those are the colors of whisper. And whisper is about going inward. It's about finding your intuition, your inner peace, your calm, your meditation home or place within you. It's a very centered color world. But take care, it's ethereal. It's not grounding, as other color worlds might be. So you need to find the right ways to use it.
Then there are in my experience creating interiors, this is an example of an interior that everybody can experience, and it's in the new Stanford Hospital. It's the center atrium where the light comes down through the ceilings, and there's this transcendent, translucent, quiet light that penetrates through the glass, and I use a lot of cast glass in my work. In almost all color worlds, I do use a lot of glass because glass carries light and picks up the light around it. It's really, really transformative. So quiet glass that picks up layers. And so how you place these things in the environment that really can really reduce your heart rate. It can create a sense of calm, and it's going to be okay. And there's a sense of kind of meditative quiet. But I also usually try to layer that in with a texture on a textile or the kind of free edge on a piece of wood or a hand-carved element, so that quietude, once again, I don't really want to put people to sleep, and I want them to feel relaxed and comfortable. And I usually like views to nature if I can, in rooms and spaces like that. And if there's not views to nature artwork that supports that. So to really have a cohesive environment that supports that layering of meditation and quietude. A white room, a quiet room with layers of whites and a little pop and it becomes almost like, you could call it an altar, but I call it a moment of pause. We all need moments of pause, reduce our heart rate, bring us to our center, get a little bit more in touch with that most true form of ourselves, our soul. And a room can do that for you.
Earthly is the color world of passion. It is a very, very provocative world. It is all of those terracottas, those spice colors, those earth tones that are really cocooning. I have to say that the first time I went to India was the first time I really experienced earthly colors. You're just so overwhelmed with all of the smells, the sounds, the colors. It's all there for you. And how you use these in a space can be interesting and important because too much of it can be overwhelming. But if you get it right, it will inspire you to follow your dreams. And that's really what this color world is about. It's about going through your life and instead of just smiling, deciding to sink.
There are the rooms where you create, and I've created spaces where I have this kind of sultry, sexy, layered, a little bit warmer, Moroccan light, shadow play, wood ceiling. Just gives this layering of like you can instantaneously travel to Morocco and go, oh my God, I remember the spice markets and the rich, hot colors. Or the views of the ridge line and how the sun comes in through the windows and how the floors are rich and dark and red. And then you complement it with the walls that aren't too dark, because too much darkness, too much of one thing can overwhelm a space. You have to give it a break. You can sit in that chair in a room by a fire, by your favorite bookcase filled with all your favorite books, by the books you hope to read, and you can dream and you can imagine possibilities. And that room will transform you.
At Ease is a beautiful color world. It's all about ease. It's all the neutrals. It's the warm khakis and the linen and the warmer grays and how they all work together. And they're kind of chameleon colors because they can work with anything as a backdrop, but they can also be the main story. And what I like to talk about is they're colors that don't make you think too much. They're restful, they're comfortable. I think about napping, having a cup of tea, lying in a hammock, going to a baseball game, puppy dogs. This is all the world of at ease.
I feel like it's a wheat field and wind blowing in the wheat. You just feel comfortable. It doesn't compete with anything else. It's just kind of soft, but a little bit rich, not too much color. And there's just a quiet calmness to these kind of spaces. This is an example. It was brown and dreary. It's the New York City apartment. And they just wanted that sense of ease when they came home. Whew. Just that kind of, okay, I'm home. I can quiet down now. I can be recharged and just have that kind of calm filtered light in the fabrics, unlined. The carpet picks up the colors, but doesn't take too much of your attention. Client's favorite photos, a little trim on your window treatment, a little sparkle in the corner. Just comfortable and easy.
This color world is called Out Loud. Out Loud. And what is that? It is all the highest saturated colors. It's those POW colors. It's colors, to be honest, that I'm always not that comfortable with unless I use them quite sparingly. But I think there are all different ways to use them. They're all about energy. Energy, energy, and going bold and taking risk. You know, you want to wear that Out Loud color to a meeting when you really want to make an impact. It is a color world that you have to be careful with, and yet if you use it in the right way, your life can explode.
And once again, it goes back to what kind of environment are you creating for who? How do you tap into their soul? And as designers, we kind of have to imagine or try to really get to what that is, to the core of it. They love bold, they love bright, they love energy. Sometimes I can consider this kind of a cortisol release, but cortisol and adrenaline with the right feel-good neurotransmitters balancing you out. These clients really wanted these pops of color, and they had very intense, stressful jobs, and they had young children and busy lives, and we really brought inside outside. I brought in woods that kind of didn't neutralize, but they kind of calmed that intensity of the color, so it didn't just take over, but it was there, and it gave them the energy they wanted to go back out into the world and be their best selves. And so I think this layering, I've had clients who want that bold, bright, just give it to me kind of color. I sometimes, like in an example, you just do much bigger art, overscale it, have it take over the room. Pick up a color in there that's the brightest, most intense color and celebrate it. Take a chair that you may have, warm woods in the room and just have one element just pops. And just all of a sudden there's like this burst of energy in the room, which is good for you in the right doses. And I've done it in commercial work. Sometimes it's a little bit more intense in my commercial work, but the same intense colors can really activate your whole neurophysiology, and people have felt like they can focus more at their jobs and be happier.
Alchemy is the world of all warm metals. We can talk about gold, we can talk about brass, we can talk about bronze, we can talk about rose gold, we can talk about any of those warm metals. They are majestic, they are imperial, they make you feel very special. This color world is about enlightenment and inspiration. And what's really interesting is in my color test that people have taken, and I have so many people, 13,000 people have taken this test already, alchemy is the most popular result. And what that tells me is that people are needing to be more creative than they are actually being. Now, the audience is mostly interior designers and architects, as you guys are, but the fact is that that color world draws out inspiration, it draws out creativity. And the fact that a lot of people are getting it means you've got to be more creative. So put away the business side and just get creative.
I think one of my favorite projects is that kind of nuanced layer. I call it wisdom. For me, it's wisdom. And in Lori's color worlds is all these beautiful layered nuances of wisdom and depth, old and new, like something that can trigger memory of an ancestor, some kind of family heirloom, and how you, like bringing an antique in maybe, or something that has layers to it, a patina, a golden light, like the most beautiful, there's might be an experience where you saw some beautiful temple somewhere. In this case, it was a client's cold room, which is their wine cellar where they store all the foods. They love to go in the garden and can things and pickle things. And she had this beautiful old gold frame, and it really became the center, and it's in there. It's like, put an old beautiful picture frame in a cold room wine cellar, and that becomes a room. Often we're friends with them and we share a lot of wonderful meals. They'll bring people into the cold room, we'll all pile in. Not as much right now, but in general, when we can all be more intimate. Bringing in big overscaled Moroccan lights, that brassy gold kind of energy to that gold light changes things. It makes you just feel more connected to something that is really, I think it's very historical, and it also moves you forward, because we need our history to be also to understand how to move forward. Here's a hand-carved mirror with literally with gold highlights. This is a New York City apartment. They love that energy and that layering of the antique, the new, and that really there was really a beautiful kind of sunset quality of light that made them feel like they would come in flying out. They fly in and out from all over, and it really recharged them and gave them a sense of connection to, you know, parts of their stories and their life.
Fragrant Woods is actually my most favorite color world, even though they're all my children. And I know you're not supposed to have a favorite. This is probably my favorite. And interestingly, it's the color world I always get when I take my test. It is about rooting in nature. The colors are all those woods, dark woods and moss greens, and when the leaves are wet. And they are, I guess I like to say Robin Hood colors, if that makes any sense to you guys. But it's a world about connecting, about nurturing, about what we give as opposed to what we receive. It's about scent. It's about collecting things that mean something to us that we can feel a connection to, and how by surrounding that in our lives, we feel connected, and connection is what we need probably now more than ever. For me personally, I live in New York City in a concrete environment in a loft, and I desperately feel like I need more rooting in nature. Fragrant Woods, bringing nature in, provides me with that. So my apartment is actually pretty much Fragrant Woods, and a little bit of at ease.
I also work a lot with reclaimed solid wood. I have a thing about that because I believe it has a soul. It's been around a long time. It's been touched by the human hand. It's not as mechanized, and it's hand rubbed, and you've got beautiful end grain and beautiful wood. This house has 7 different reclaimed woods. Bring in materials that pick up the materials in the world outside. In this particular project, we have floors from France, beautiful big pieces of limestone that were recycled, which I think is really important in our environments. We use materials that have a life. Another experience with colors, and this is a project that I did where we, from the ground up, really tall ceilings, bringing those leaves into the house, you know, that kind of bay leaf green, and giving a sense of just feeling like you feel refreshed and you feel protected, but you feel vastness. In this particular house, I felt it embodied that really well. We had a bridge in the middle of a 23-foot ceiling house that connected the bedroom wings. And then I put the dining table under the canopy, under the bridge. I'm like, I can't just have it floating there. And it anchored the room, but you always could look around the room and see up into the sky. It's kind of back to that idea of the cathedral effect, where you feel your mind just realizes you have so many possibilities, and it fosters creative thinking. It really, that space was, I was so nervous about the tall ceilings, but it really worked. When you were in there, you felt connected to the sky above and grounded to the earth at the same time, and it didn't feel heavy. It felt invigorating, almost like you're out and you have this beautiful kind of sense of that smell of fresh rain. And the colors really, really picked up on their environment. I think in this case it worked. And as a designer, bringing the outside in and layering in the woods that complement, but they're different, but they all layer in, so they're actually a holistic whole. That sense of, you just feel that you're in a space that it doesn't pull your attention too much one way or the other, but you just feel like you just feel refreshed.
Hi, everybody, we're back. Lisa, are you back?
I am back. Thank you for joining the film.
I love that everybody stayed on for the whole movie. Thank you. That was great. Alexa, are you there? Are there any questions for us?
Hi, yeah, actually a few questions have come through. I guess we'll just jump right into the Q&A section. Again, if you have any questions, just hit the Q&A box and type them in there. Lori, this one's for you. How do you decide what colors your fabrics should be when developing a collection?
Well, let me first say that I wish that I could do many more colorways than I am able to do, but we have budgets that we have to stick to. Otherwise, I'd be doing many more colors. I think it's mostly an intuitive process, and there are certain colors we know will just sell a lot and sell well and pretty consistently. So we always make sure to have those. And there are the neutrals, the ones you would expect, warm and cool. But then depending on the particular fabric that it is, it tells me what colors it needs to be, and then we color spec for that reason. So hopefully within the whole collection, we have a good offering, enough for everybody. And depending on the interiors that people like Lisa are working on, they can find something that works. Thank you for that question.
Great. Lisa, this one's for you. Can you give examples of how spaces can affect your neurochemistry?
Well, there's a lot of examples of this. I did mention in the film the cathedral effect, and throughout our history as humans, as we've evolved, and throughout ancient cultures, some of the world's most beautiful cathedrals and spaces that have you look up to the heavens, to the sky, to the unknown, has been shown to help people feel less anxious and hopeful. And now I showed the Stanford Hospital project, which I was fortunate to be toured through, and on the whole building and the intent. There was a lot of science put into that, creating that space by the teams that created it. And they've really proven that by having the rooms have access with 10-foot ceilings, views to the outside looking up, that their patients have been more receptive to healing, less painkillers, and that they just less anxious. So it is thankfully being proven through science and through our history that spaces can calm us down as human beings. They can also activate us. All of us probably have experience when you get into a space and you're like, I've got to get out of here. I just got to get out of here. Your skin's crawling. Your heart rate is probably up. You have your fight or flight fear mechanism, the cortisol's raging, and you're like, I got to get out of here. Or you can say, okay, 5 deep breaths. I've got to calm down and get into another space, get some sense of daylight, or get a sense of seeing out to a window, or something that calms you down. So throughout history and through contemporary design, and just like in Lori's color collections, you know that colors activate or have a certain resonating experience. Now through neuroscience, neurotransmitters, biochemistry, it can get complex, which really excites me because I really want the science behind what I'm doing. And I'm doing it through my 30 years of design experience, where I create a space and someone will say, I was just really hated that room and I was really stressed out. And they'll say, what you did, that color, it changed. In this, I'm thinking of a client where I painted it a color of blue, and she said her life in her bedroom was just so much better. She felt so much more connected to her partner. That's a color. That's a healthy physiological response, that you feel more connected and relaxed. So
I want to say, Lisa, that when you're designing, it's about getting the right thing, but it doesn't mean it has to cost more money.
No. I was just painting a wall. And she was like, I didn't want to tear out the whole room. I mean, I do ground up projects, working with a great architectural team and a whole amazing team. We build from ground up, but in some cases, a client just wants a new color or a new chair reupholstered, or just something to reactivate a space. And I get a lot of testimonials that they just feel different. And sometimes they don't know why. And now I do research with neuroscience. I have a work with a dear friend who is a neuroscientist, and doctors, and find out reactions. But I do eventually hope to be able to put electrodes on people and articulate this. But just to have someone say to me, I just feel better. I'm not as anxious. And that anxiety is a chemical reaction. It's a biophysical reaction. And I just want humans in all of our work collectively, that we can actually really transform human beings. And sometimes you don't have to tell them why. You just, as a designer, we're the curators, we're the gatekeepers. We help by understanding what we're creating for who and for the environment. Then we can layer in, and it just, when it works, which we all strive for it to work and to make people's lives better, it's extraordinary. So that's maybe a too long of an answer for the question, but I hope that helps. I get excited about it.
That was great. Another question that's come up is, what resources, websites, or books can I learn more about the healing elements of color? And I think either of you, do you want to jump in on that?
Oh, Lori's Color World.
I'll start and say that what's really interesting is how much there is and how many different perspectives there are. So I wrote a book called Ode to Color, which is what this whole, a lot of this is based on, but it's a totally intuitive, personal storytelling about how I see color and view color. And there are many people who are experts in science of color who do all these tests and tell you that, you put kids in a red room versus a blue room, and this will happen versus that will happen. And so depending on what your particular interests are in color, there's a vast assortment. And I actually have a list of because I've been asked this before, and if you put in the chat or the Q&A, I guess we'll know who you are, Alexis, because I have a list of my favorite 6 books on color, and I can happily email it to you after the talk.
Yeah, and then I think actually that's a good point, because we do plan, this is being recorded, and we can send out a follow-up for resources. Actually, I'm doing a lot of research on this for my book, and I have a whole chapter dedicated to neuroscience and color and research historically and culturally, and the science behind it. So off the top of my head, I can't name it, but I am doing a lot of research on it. I will have a chapter dedicated to it, but I'm happy to share the resources in the meantime of what we're finding out. And then there are some books I have been referring to with my research for the book on what we're finding out and what has been found out about color psychology, neuroscience of color. And it's, I think it's really going to be blossoming more and more as people are realizing the impact of design and color in their lives. It's really an incredible field. And I think it's going to blossom more and more, which is wonderful. So we can do a follow-up.
I would like to add to that, because, I'm not an interior designer. You are, and I think most of the people who are tuning in are, and we need you guys to make yourselves even more accessible to as many people as you can, because you are the experts and people need help and support in trying to figure out not what looks good, but what is the right thing for them in their spaces.
Exactly. And also, I think, not just for our clients, I think it should be accessible to all human beings, that we can have a general knowledge of what can help all of us on this planet, which is precious and we need to take very good care of, that we can actually help us all cope as humans better through the work we do as designers, architects, product designers, fabricators, the whole incredible world that we all work in, that we actually can have a huge impact. And so I think, and it should be more accessible and not not something secretive. It should be inclusive. So I'm really striving for that as well, to make it, and with the public work I do or the pro bono work as well, we've seen a really big impact for the rooms and the colors, and for people going through difficult situations. When you create the room the right way and the right kind of photographs, the right kind of art, the right kind of placements, it really is transformative.
So there are 2 questions that are kind of on that note. I'm going to kind of merge them into one. One is, what would you recommend for people who don't know what direction to go in and can't make drastic changes? And also, how do you handle interior design if different members of the family respond in different ways to color?
That's a good one. I think I'll jump in that one, because often I will go into and especially a lot of households are living together. And I think we're going to see more and more in America as we come back out of COVID, because there'll be more pandemics. We're going to see a lot more of the European model, more of the global model of multi-generational gracious living family compounds. And I even know I've been working on more family compound projects, and that people have different tastes. How could everyone feel like it's their home if you're sharing an environment? So I really think that you need to create spaces in those shared environments where people feel like they have ownership of their place. Maybe it's their chair, that's their bedroom, they get to paint the color there, they get to pick the art in certain rooms. Hopefully, it depends if you're doing it by yourself or you have a designer helping you or an architect, but that you can have a cohesiveness to the individuality. So really kind of, you need to be diplomatic, and hopefully you all get along. It's very important. And as designers, we can tell if people don't get along. And often we become peacekeepers through the design element. If someone has different taste, we come in as a curator and the peacemaker and diplomat, to how to really pull the room together and say, this can be for this will be your element, layers into your element, and it becomes a cohesive whole. So how it becomes, it's something, I think if you don't have someone to help you create the diplomacy just on your own, you try to just make sure for you, if it's very personal, you have your own special spot. And I often say to someone, you can literally reupholster a chair, change your bedding, throw a new throw down, get a piece of art, frame something simple, even a photograph. Even if you can't have a whole new house done or all new window treatments, do one shade, find a remnant, do one wall of wallpaper, find that favorite cup, get rid of the stuff you don't like. That's really important. Get rid of that stuff, get it out of your life. If it triggers something negative, it goes to someone else, recycle it. You've got to get rid of it. It's very stressful. So those are a few little tips that you can begin to build on. And Lori, I don't know if you have any other comments about that.
No, you're the master.
Really
I just laugh when you say get rid of what you don't like. And I love this person's question because my husband and I are right now trying to renovate a little bathroom, and we don't agree. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what to do about it.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, maybe what can happen, you each pick something, but that then you say, okay, I don't want to fight with you. How can we find, let's put it all on the table, and how can we find what are our favorite elements of what do we agree on? And then maybe less is more to start. Then you get it done and you might layer in a little bit more. And that's hard because you both want to have your own way. But you need to say, okay, step back and try to see from the other person's perspective. Why do you love this so much? Why don't I? And then you find the elements that you can agree upon, and really to start, less is more, layer it in, and then maybe you layer in more later, right? Yeah. Hope that
another question for both of you is, you both have pattern screens as backdrops. Would you like to discuss that?
Oh, I would love to discuss mine. Thank you, whoever asked that. This is a brand new, I do these beautiful handmade wall coverings, these panels. They're all made from sustainable, recycled pulp. And this is a new one called Narrative. And people mostly will put these on the wall. You paint your wall any color, and then you hang this over it. And the color of the wall, whatever color it is we choose, and the handmade paper play with each other. In this case, because this is my design studio and I have a lot of glass, this is suspended from the glass so that you can sort of see through into the conference room, which is where I am, but you also don't have to see totally through. There are lots of ways to use my handmade panel. So please definitely check them out. Actually, Weitzner Wall Coverings and Fabrics in LA, which is where most of you are tuning in from, I think, are with Holly Hunt, which I'm very happy about. And if you're not in LA and you want to know where they are, if I can put a little plug in, you just go to the Weitzner Limited website. It tells you in your territory who our rep is. But thank you for asking.
Where's this particular paper made?
It's made in the Philippines with a family of artisans that I've been working with for about 15 years now on different projects. And what's so cool is that it's an open air, amazing. If you've ever made handmade paper and pulp, you work in these big vats with steam and water, but the materials they use are indigenous. So we use abaca, which is banana fiber. We use piña, which is pineapple fiber. We use mulberry leaves, which is all abundant there. Mix it all together with hot water, break it down into pulp, and then create these beautiful patterned handmade panels. And we do them in color. And that's always hard, is to choose what colors, because the more natural colors work best. And like if you get At Ease or Fragrant Woods or one of those in your color test, these are perfect. And I also, Lisa, in terms of wall covering, I always thought, why does a wall covering have to cover the wall completely? Why can't the wall and the wall covering play together? And then you, as a designer, can decide what those colors are, how they play together. So
and I think that's why I asked where it's made. I think this is back to the ripple effect and working with, always think of our work globally and all the amazing artisans in the world that we work with, and help them kind of rethink things, because the artisans on our planet are essential to our planet's health and well-being, because people have had this in their lives for many, many generations. It's their legacy. And I know Lori travels the world to work with artisans to rethink how things are done. And also as I travel the world and study ancient cultures, new ideas. And I think a lot of us are travelers for that reason, because we want to make sure we're aware of all the possibilities. And I think it's just so essential, and it's also just healthy for the planet and healthy for our well-being when something's touched by hand. I do believe it releases healthy endorphins. It really does release the good serotonin. It creates a sense of something connected, and it's almost I think it's deep, very deep inside of our DNA as human beings, as Homo sapiens. Now, going back to my screen, I've been doing a lot more work with screens, dividing spaces, really big spaces, giving them a sense of privacy and open. These are laser cut screens. We do a lot of work. We draw it up, we put it in AutoCAD, we have it laser cut, both with wood and metal. And it's a nice way to give a sense of filtered light, and also using the paper screens are beautiful too with the glass, and you can sandwich it if you ever want to have more sound privacy as well. There's all these amazing ways to divide spaces for a sense of open and private, because I think as we move forward in the future through commercial design, because I do commercial work as well, and residential design, and even like in bedrooms, I like to put a screened area or closet doors, or, you know, we can do window screens from beautiful layered elements. So the screening, it's in my new design studio because I think it's very important. It's a core of what we do for how we divide spaces, and that people can think about how to divide spaces and all the possibilities. And so this was a pattern we took and kind of modernized from the Alhambra in Spain, which I think it's very important as you design and create things, and you do study patterns around the world and in our country to really find inspiration and a history and legacy, which helps us be more human, I think.
How are we?
Great. And we're getting close to the end of time. Just a couple more questions. This one's for Lisa, but I think, Lori, you could also answer it. Is how do you elicit your clients' needs in terms of color?
That's a good one. You know, actually, I've not been a designer who, and I've thought about this for many years. Should I give a questionnaire? What are their favorite colors? But sometimes I don't know. So I will see how they dress. When I usually like to visit people in their homes, or if I'm going to a commercial space, I see the ethos of the space. But in homes or residential, I'll just get a sense of what they have in their space. And if they've never, if that's their space, they don't want it to be like, I'll just say, do you have a favorite piece of clothing, a favorite scarf? Does, you know, your partner, or do you have, what color is your car? What kind of dishes do you like? I'll kind of just ask questions about things that they actually love the most, from clothes to dishware to a pillow to, and then I'll say, are there places in the world or places you like to travel that you like how it feels? And then I also tell them just to, you know, think about if they could think of a color or an experience they've had that they might help them think about if they like that color or not. Now, I do also use Lori's color tests more and more, and my clients are like, oh, I never thought of it that way. They get really excited. So I'm so glad the test is available to everybody because they get so excited. And then I do want them to bring out their favorite things. And if they don't have any favorite things, I say, let's start from the beginning. Now it's a really fresh palette, right? And just tell me when you open a book, or, you know, or kind of look in your closet. It's very personal being a designer, and there has to be a real level of trust. And I always tell everybody, you know, everything that goes to me is confidential, and I want them to feel very safe. So it is a process. I will say their favorite places in nature you love, favorite flowers. Do they have a garden? Do they want a garden? Do they have favorite gardens? Because that will just give me cues to build upon. And I have to say, most often, people do have a sense of what they like, and then I'll put it all out there and we'll start to build from it.
I think just one thing I want to add, that one of my goals with creating this color test, which is flawed, it's not perfect, but I worked with a psychologist for over 6 months developing it, was for people to understand that color is personal, that it's not about following a trend. It's not about what you think is the right thing. It's how you feel. And obviously it's Lisa's job and other designers' jobs to figure out what those colors are for those clients. But I just want to make sure that people choose their colors based on what it will do for them, not what they think is the right thing or the chic thing, etc. Color is personal, and color needs to be looked at as a tool for wellness.
Well, I really agree. That actually taps into me tying the word soul into design and color. That's a very big thing to say. But you cannot actually experience a space where you can be your best self, your deepest, truest self, unless it's real for you, not a trend. It can't be something that, well, everybody's doing it, I got to do it. You probably won't really feel like that's your space. It needs to be deeply that sense of your unabashed self, like no other outside influences, it's yours. And sometimes people go, well, I've never really thought about what I really like and what I really want deep, deep down inside. So just to open the door and open the question. And if it's different from your other people you live with, that's okay. It's yours. You can have one room or one area or one corner, but you will feel that that space is more your space, so you can truly recharge in your space. That's what spaces are for, to recharge us, to re-energize us, to put us back into the world, to have, when we can, have our friends over and to entertain and be proud of and be excited by and feel really like your truest self. So color, design, it's all very personal. And then how we bring it into spaces so it isn't something that's just a trending thing is very essential for it to really work and really truly affect your well-being and your biochemistry and your neurochemistry, because you can't just throw that around and say it's going to do it. It has to be truthful. So to get to the bottom of that is it's a exploration and a process. And I often, sometimes I don't tell people my agenda is to find your soul and give you the neuroscience of soul in your space. But I will tell them that I hope to help you create a space that you feel like your best self, and that I can help you get there and help you find these things and create these environments for you that you will really love and feel really connected to. And therefore you'll go out into the world and I think we could even be better human beings in the world at large.
I think we have time for one more, and I think it's a good time to have sort of a question looking forward. Are there any ideas on what your next story will be about, either individually or together? I know, Lisa, you mentioned you were working on a book.
Yeah, I'm working on my book, The Soul of Design, The Neuroscience of Beauty, and it's come a long way. And I think and I'll speak for Lori, I hope that's okay, we hope to take our platform more globally and share a full immersion experience in much more in depth. And then eventually, hopefully, teach or do workshops around the world, not just for designers, but for anyone who's involved with buildings and creating spaces for people. So everybody has the tools for beauty and soul and design and color, that they can really see that we can have a real impact on us as humans on our whole planet, and that we're all together. So that's my small little dream.
And I just have a million things I want to keep doing and do new and more of. And I'm also working on a second book, and I'm working on some fine art project related to the color worlds that I may exhibit maybe in Venice, possibly next year. We'll see. And yeah. Always something. But I think I want to just say thank you to all of you guys who have been so, like, I'm reading all these chats. And
I see all these questions. You're really excited.
And thanks for sticking with us for the hour. And I'm sure there's something coming up next, which is going to be great. But for me, it's dinner time soon. So in New York. So I think it's time.
We were at an hour, and Lori and I always hope, we really want to give this to you. This is something we feel so passionate about, and we want our industry to be just this amazing industry. And we're so fortunate to be entrusted to do what we do in the world. And it's such a tremendous gift and a really tremendous responsibility that we can actually really create such extraordinary environments for people through beautiful things and beautiful fabrics and beautiful color. It's really an amazing passion, and it's an incredible call to action and a big responsibility for all of us. So really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being here and giving us the opportunity to share this with you. And we're here. You can reach us by email. Alexander will do follow-up. We'll have it recorded. We'll follow up with some of our resources, because we really want to share everything that we're learning and all the research and experiences and the global everything we're doing.
And Lisa, one last thing, we need to thank the Mart for giving us.
Yes, thank you. Yes, Los Angeles, the Pacific Design Center. We couldn't do this without you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So thank you all, and we will see you again somewhere in the world.
Yeah, I'm getting so many chats. I don't want them to go away once I click off.
It's recorded, Lisa, so we'll be able to read them afterwards. Sorry.
It's really wonderful to see.
Anyway, so we're signing off now, but next time we hope it's in person that we see you all.
Yes. Thank you, everybody. What a blessing. Thank you. Thank you, Pacific Design Center.